Hey everyone, ready for another deep dive into the latest AI news? We're going beyond just the headlines today, really trying to unpack what these developments mean, for the future and all that. It's like getting a personalized briefing on the AI trends that are actively shaping the world right now.
Yeah, no, it's definitely an exciting time to be following AI. Things are moving so fast.
You can say that again. We've got four big stories on our radar today, all from AI Deep Dive. Microsoft's making some big moves with these autonomous agents, and IBM's shaking things up with their new Granite model. Plus, there's a legal battle brewing between publishers and Perplexity AI. And, of course, because it's 2024, Tesla's found themselves in some hot water over, you guessed it, AI.
Sounds like we've got a lot to unpack.
We do. Let's kick things off with Microsoft. They seem to be going all in on these so-called autonomous agents, right?
Yeah, it's an interesting development for sure.
It's like they're taking the idea of a digital assistant, like we've all been using for years now, and injecting it with a mega dose of AI steroids or something.
Yeah, kind of. They're basically envisioning this world where these AI agents are handling tasks across all of our apps, seamlessly integrating into our digital lives. Like, imagine your agent is booking your meetings, drafting emails, maybe even pulling together reports,
Mm.
all while you're grabbing another coffee.
Okay, yeah, that does sound pretty slick. I'll give them that. But Microsoft's taking it a step further than just automation, right? They're calling this whole shift AI-first companies. What does that even mean? Like for, I don't know, a company like, say, a pet food company. What would that even look like?
It's a good question, and to be honest, the definition is still a little nebulous. But the core idea seems to be that for these AI-first companies, AI isn't just a tool. Like, it's woven into the fabric of the business, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
Driving strategy and operations, maybe even how they interact with customers even.
So they're not just automating tasks, but potentially reshaping how companies operate on a fundamental level.
Exactly. And they're already pointing to some real-world examples of this happening. McKinsey, the consulting giant, is using these AI agents to streamline client onboarding, and they're claiming something like a 90% reduction in lead time.
90%. Okay, now you're speaking my language. Time-saving AI. Sign me up. But you mentioned a pet food company before. What about for those kinds of businesses?
Well, Pets at Home, it's a big pet care retailer in the UK. They've deployed an AI agent to help their profit protection team, analyze potential losses, And early estimates suggest that they could save millions annually.
Wow, okay, so real companies are seeing real results. It's not all theoretical anymore.
Uh,
But I got to say, handing over that much control to AI is a little, I don't know, unnerving, right? Are we one software update away from a robot takeover?
well, hopefully we can at least keep the robots from demanding cuddles and belly rubs.
Yeah, that's where I draw the line.
But, in all seriousness, the article does acknowledge that there are some valid concerns here, especially when it comes to security and trust. Microsoft is really trying to emphasize that these agents are being designed with things like privacy and ethics in mind, but it's still a valid question, right?
Yeah.
As AI gets more and more capable, how do we make sure it's being used responsibly, ethically?
It's a question we're definitely going to have to grapple with sooner rather than later, especially with the speed at which all of this technology is developing. Speaking of grappling with big questions, IBM is taking a different approach to AI development, one that puts a really big emphasis on transparency and trustworthiness.
Yeah, it's definitely refreshing to see. While a lot of these companies are just racing to build the most powerful AI, just bigger and bigger, IBM seems to be focusing more on building AI that we can actually rely on and trust. And their latest release, Granite 3.0, it's a pretty direct challenge to those giants like OpenAI, but there's a key difference here. Open source development.
Open source. So you mean that the actual code behind Granite is available for, well, anyone to just see, tinker with? That's a pretty bold move when we're talking about cutting-edge AI.
Yeah, it is. And it comes with its own set of, potential benefits and risks. On the one hand, you've got this open source development that really encourages collaboration and innovation. Like, developers around the world can directly contribute to Granite's growth, potentially even accelerating its capabilities. But on the flip side, there's also a risk of misuse, right? I mean, open source code could be exploited to build harmful applications or, bypass those safety measures that are in place.
A double-edged sword for sure.
Yeah.
But how does Granite actually perform? Can an open source AI model really compete with those, behemoths that have been built with billions of dollars poured into them?
It's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And from what IBM is saying, Granite can actually outperform or at least match those similarly sized models on certain tasks, like, text summarization or data analysis. They've even released some benchmarks to back that up, but, independent verification is still kind of pending. But if it's true, this could mean that we're going to see smaller, more focused AI models, especially those that are built with transparency in mind, being just as capable as those larger counterparts.
And probably way more accessible for a lot of businesses and organizations that don't have the resources to build their own AI empires, right?
Exactly. Granite's smaller size just makes it more cost-effective to implement and run. It's kind of like the difference between having an entire data center at your disposal versus like a powerful but portable workstation. Both can get the job done, but that workstation is going to be way more manageable for most people.
Okay, so affordability is huge. But I want to circle back to this whole trustworthy AI thing for a second. What actually makes Granite different? Like, how is IBM actually addressing these concerns we hear about all the time, about AI bias or these systems just going rogue?
So they've integrated these things called Granite Guardian models, and basically they run alongside the main AI model, but they act as safeguards against potential risks. Think of them like AI watchdogs, constantly monitoring for any signs of bias or misinformation, or even just attempts to manipulate the AI into behaving badly.
Manipulate, like tricking it into revealing sensitive information or generating something harmful?
Exactly. Think about it this way. There's this whole subculture online of people who are constantly trying to jailbreak AI systems, basically just finding ways to get around the safety protocols, make the AI do things it wasn't designed to do.
So these Granite Guardian models are like the security system that's designed to keep the AI in check, on the straight and narrow. Prevent it from going full-blown HAL 9000 on us.
Yeah, you could say that. It's definitely an interesting approach. And it kind of highlights this growing awareness that we're seeing in the AI community. It's not just about building smarter AI anymore. It's about building AI that we can actually trust.
Trust is definitely key,
Right.
especially as AI starts playing a larger and larger role in our lives. And this whole issue of trust, or the lack thereof, I guess, leads us perfectly into our next story, which is going to take us deep into the complex and often confusing world of AI and copyright law.
Yep, the case of the publishers versus Perplexity AI. This one has the potential to completely rewrite the rules of content creation and ownership in the age of AI.
Oh, I can already tell this one is going to be juicy.
Buckle up because things are about to get interesting.
All right. So we're talking about publishers coming after Perplexity AI, and this whole thing could completely change how we think about, news and creative work in the age of AI. Where do we even start with this one? What's the main issue here?
Well, at its core, it all boils down to how AI interacts with material that's protected by copyright. So we've got Rupert Murdoch's News Corp. They own some pretty big publications, right? Like the Wall Street Journal and the New York Post. And they're suing Perplexity AI. It's an AI-powered search engine. And they're saying Perplexity is using their content without asking for permission.
So they're saying Perplexity is just straight up stealing their articles. But isn't that what, all search engines do anyway?
Oh.
I'll admit, I'm a little fuzzy on where the line is here between, fair use and...
And that's exactly where things start to get a little, shall we say, murky? Perplexity is saying they operate just like any other search engine out there, right? They're indexing publicly available information, and they're providing links back to the original sources. They even say they go a step further by actually including citations in those AI-generated summaries that they offer.
Okay, but the publishers aren't buying it, are they?
Not really, no. Their argument is that these AI summaries that Perplexity is generating, they're saying that they're so comprehensive that people just have zero incentive to actually click through to the original articles, And that's what they're really worried about because that's what's driving their ad revenue and their subscriptions. They're basically getting cut out of the equation.
So it's less about, using snippets of text, like a traditional search engine might, and more about how Perplexity's AI is actually changing user behavior.
Yeah.
It's like the publishers are saying, hey, you're making money off our hard work, but you're not playing by the rules.
Exactly. And there's a really interesting layer of, irony to all of this. Remember earlier when we were talking about open source development? Well, News Corp, the same company that's suing Perplexity, they also have a deal with OpenAI, the company behind ChatGPT. And they use tons of data to train their AI models, including news articles, presumably even some from News Corp's own publications.
Wait, hold on. So they're suing one company for using their content, but they're totally fine partnering with another company that's doing essentially the same thing.
It does seem a little contradictory, right? But it just goes to show how incredibly complex this whole issue of AI and copyright actually is. There just isn't a clear consensus on what's considered fair use in this new landscape and this lawsuit. Well, it could really set a precedent for how these things are dealt with going forward.
It definitely feels like we're in uncharted territory, legally speaking. And speaking of uncharted territory, our final story today takes us from the courtroom to, well, something that feels like it's straight out of a cyberpunk movie. Tesla's been hit with a lawsuit over AI-generated images, and it involves, well, a future filled with bioengineered beings that may or may not want to retire to a nice farm upstate.
Yeah, this one feels like it's ripped straight from the headlines of The Onion, but with like a tech twist or something. Tesla, in a move that I don't think anyone saw coming, is being sued for allegedly using AI-generated images that are basically just ripped off from the movie Blade Runner 2049.
Oh, come on. Seriously. What were they thinking? Did they really think no one would notice?
Well, apparently Tesla did reach out to Alcon Entertainment, the company that produced Blade Runner 2049, and they asked for permission to use the imagery, but, they were denied.
And their brilliant solution was to just create images that looked super similar using AI. They completely missed that whole memo about how copyright law works.
It does seem that way, doesn't it? But putting aside the humor of it all for a second, this situation actually does raise some important and potentially really tricky legal questions about how this stuff is supposed to work. If an AI generates an image that's based on a copyrighted work, like who actually owns the rights to that new image? Is it the AI itself, the person who told the AI to make the image? Or is it the original artist?
It's a really good question, and it kind of feels like we keep bumping up against the same issue, right? The law just can't keep up with the speed of technology. In this case, just like that case with Perplexity AI, could have huge implications for how copyright law evolves to keep up with this whole AI revolution that's happening.
It's definitely a tangled web we're weaving here, that's for sure. And it's a stark reminder of just how quickly things are changing in this space. It's an exciting time to be following AI, I'll give it that, but it's also a little unnerving, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. Well, on that slightly ominous note, we're going to have to wrap things up for today, but we covered a lot of ground, from those autonomous agents that are already starting to change how businesses operate, to the legal battles brewing over copyright, and of course, the always entertaining world of AI art. It's a wild ride, and it's only going to get wilder from here on out.
No doubt about that.
So, until next time, remember everyone,
Yeah.
keep those algorithms in check.